So I would like to introduce the next panel, which is continuing the legacy, and introduce the panelists, and then we'll all come up together. And Marty will come back out and join us. So Tony Baxter, in 1970, Disney legend and creative advisor to Imagineering. Tony was hired by Imagineering to work on the opening of Magic Kingdom Park in 1970. In the following years, he came a string of creations that helped shape Disneyland's landscape. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, New Fantasyland, Star Tours, Splash Mountain, and Indiana Jones Adventure. He was instrumental in bringing back such attractions as Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage, Sleeping Beauty Castle, Walkthrough, and great moments with Mr. Lincoln. In 2013, Tony stepped down from Imagineering but remains an advisor and mentor. He was named Disney Legend in 2013 and received a window on Main Street the same year. Kim Irvine, Disney Imagineering. Kim began her career with Imagineering in 1970, working as a painter and model builder for Magic Kingdom, Disneyland's New Fantasyland, Epcot, and Disneyland Paris. She has worked at Imagineering Disneyland office as art director for Disneyland since 1981, leading a diverse team of designers in the constant care and feeding of Disney's original park. She has also led the team in reimagineering the interior and exteriors of many shops and restaurants, and has art directed new magic and classic attractions. Kevin Rafferty, Executive Creative Director, Walt Disney Imagineering. Excuse me, my paper's stapled here. As Executive Creative Director, Kevin is in charge of all aspects of the design of a particular project. From concept to creation, for several decades he has worked on projects all over the world and has made an especially notable contribution to the Disneyland Resort. Some of the Anaheim-based projects Kevin has worked on as either a show writer or creative director include Flick's Fun Fair, It's Tough to Be a Bug, Monsters Inc., Mike and Sully to the Rescue, Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage, Toy Story Midway Mania, and Cars Land, featuring the award-winning Radiator Springs Racers attraction. Quite a lineup. Steve Davison, Executive of Parades and Spectacular, and Steve is responsible for the creative development and implementation of Disney's daytime and nighttime parades and spectaculars worldwide. He began his career as a show director at Disneyland in 1981 and set a new standard for theme park entertainment by creating storylines for fireworks shows such as Believe. He also created seasonal overlays for attractions such as the Haunted Mansion and It's a Small World. Steve joined WDI Creative Entertainment in 2002 and has had a prolific career creating such Disneyland Resort hallmarks as Pixar Play Parade, Mickey Sensational Parade, World of Color, and 3 new nighttime spectaculars for the Diamond Celebration. Sharita Carter, producer of Walt Disney Imagineering. Sharita began her Imagineering career in 1997 with the accounting and finance teams before transitioning into a role as a creative producer on the Blue Sky Studios Scenic Illusions team, notably adding new environmental magic to classic attractions like Snow White's Scary Adventures, Alice in Wonderland, or Indiana Jones Adventure, all at Disneyland Park, plus the Legends of Captain Jack Sparrow at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists up on stage, as well as Marty Sklar.
Musical chairs.
So how do we follow that first out?
Oh, yeah.
So welcome. Because everybody started at different times over the decades, I thought the format of this hour would be a little different. We would go a little more free-flowing, and I would ask you 3 questions that will hopefully guide us through your personal experiences as an Imagineer and your contributions to Disneyland. And you can all feel free to chime in with each other's questions. Obviously, you've collaborated with each other, so we'll make it as interactive as we can. So I would like to start with the first question, which is, drum roll. Actually, You know what? I'll hold off. I'm not gonna ask the question yet. I'm actually gonna backtrack because I wanna start with you, Marty, because I wanna pick up where we left off. But to introduce all these wonderful folks, I want you to tell us, at the time of the 70s, when, you know, obviously Walt's passed away, and now you're starting to bring in new recruits for Walt Disney World and Epcot. Tell me about the process of starting to hire these young Imagineers, and where, you know, what were you guys looking for? What was it gonna take to bring in this new great team of people that could fulfill the same legacy that you guys?
Well, not many of them came in with a whole attraction, the beginning of a whole attraction design like Tony did. That was really amazing to have somebody come in with that much thought and actual worked out a model, et cetera, et cetera. That didn't happen very often. But, you know, all of a sudden we started getting a lot more interest in being an Imagineering, what an Imagineer was, which wasn't very well known at that time. And a lot of the Cal Arts had been created, and a lot of the schools were turning out people who wanted to be in the motion picture or entertainment industry, and designers, architects, and they started looking at Disneyland and at Walt Disney World. I think Walt Disney World was a big piece of the big change that happened, because all of a sudden, here we were designing hotels, we were designing water parks, we were designing almost everything. And it made a much higher profile for the company and for people who had talent, who wanted to be in entertainment. Look at how much entertainment Walt Disney World started. They had to feed they had to feed a place where people were living for 24 hours, and all of these things made a lot more opportunity in a lot more fields than we had before.
Okay, so you were now looking for, how were you guys hiring people? What was the sort of the hiring process? Was it, you said at the Cal Arts, but give us an intro to how all these people sort of, how you kind of found people.
Well, can I give you one example?
Yeah.
I got a call from Bob Matheson, who was the head of operations at Walt Disney World, and he said, I have this young man who has worked summers at Walt Disney World for about 3 years now, and they used to have an end of summer dinner for all the temporary employees at Walt Disney World. This is early 70s, and he said, this one young man is really sharp. Would you meet him if he came to California? And I said, sure. And so I figured, you know, he'd come out a couple of weeks from now or something. The next day I got a call and from this young man, and I couldn't see him right away. It was a couple of days later, but he came in and he brought this big styrofoam model that he built, and he presented the model and the idea behind the model. It was a Winnie the Pooh attraction, and my colleague Randy Bright, who was in charge of a lot of the development of Epcot with me, and I said, Randy, let's step out in the hall and talk about this, and we did. And I said, you know, Randy, I think we should hire this young man. We saw his writing samples, they were very good. So I walked back in the room and I said, Tom, we're going to hire you on one condition. And he said, what's that? And I said, you never build another model. This is the worst model ever. And Tom Fitzgerald, who's right now his biggest project, he's in charge of the next development of Epcot. But he's been in charge of story and developing stories for all of our parks around the world. And his writing samples were very good, and he has never built another model. was a good idea, you could see the idea. But anyway, calling cards are, and portfolios are difficult, especially today, because a lot of the digital work, you have to really find out whether that person can draw freehand, and whether the digital work is actually his or hers.